You'll notice that cars built before 1967 used these colored levers, which actually were more durable and look great when they're lit up at night. AC was available as a dealer-installed option for these cars and definitely add value, especially if it's working. The early units were made by Bear or Coolmeister, but most of the ones you'll see out there are this design made by King, as AC became more popular in the later cars. Aftermarket kits using more modern components are available, but don't look quite as streamlined as the originals. Becker was a factory supplier of radios for Mercedes, and Blaupunkt versions were also out there, but were usually more of a dealer-installed item. Cassette versions of the ubiquitous pinstripe Becker became available in 1972, and it's not uncommon to see this upgrade, even though it postdates these cars. Now, one thing I hate to see ruining the dash design of a Pagoda is this type of thing. To quote Raymond Chandler, it stands out like a tarantula on a slice of angel food cake. Becker does make a classic pinstripe-styled radio that has Bluetooth and USB, so if you have to have modern technology, there are good options through the original supplier. Radios from the early cars were about 10 millimeters shorter in height than the later ones, and the dash plate for them was a separate piece, as you can see here by this seam. The early cars also had smaller knobs with a sleeker design. These early radios can be a lot harder to find than the later ones, and very expensive when you do find them. The Becker versions that fit are the TR and the TG models, but actually just about any vintage radio that fits without cutting the dash is usually going to be okay because this size is just so hard to find. All Pagodas came with just one speaker, found here on top of the dashboard. If you must add speakers, the kick panels are really about your only good option, and if you can find some speakers from a Mercedes sedan of that era, they can look pretty discreet. One thing that is a huge no-no is to cut into any area around the parcel shelf. Cars that have had that done risk a very real deduction in their value, and it's not just snobs like me that think so. Now, I did sell one car that this was done on, and it was the back wall that was cut. It appeared that it was probably done by the selling dealer when it was new, and being a Blaupunkt component tied into that theory. Being from the same era as the car lessened the blow a little bit, but in short, you just don't want to mess with this area. Now let's take a closer look at what these parcel shelf covers are all about anyway. These two covers are wedged into place and held down with a thumb screw on each side. If you remove these covers, you can get a look into the rear wells, and this is definitely something that should be on your list of areas to check. The lowermost section of these wells can hold water, and with that, of course, comes rust. These ones pictured here look pretty good in that respect. There's a little staining, but no real rust. Some Pagodas use this area for an optional third seat, or kinder seat as they were called. And as the name suggests, it's suitable for a small child or perhaps an adult that really likes yoga. This is a cool option, and I've had it on the car that I restored, as well as two others, so it's not as rare as it may seem. Another unusual variant that you may come across is what's known as a California coupe. So normally on these you have the opening lid that reveals the storage compartment where the soft top is folded down into. On a California coupe, this entire area was eliminated to make room for a full-width seat that can also be folded down flat for a storage area. The downside, of course, was that you have no soft top. So maybe if you lived in Southern California, you could get away with this configuration, but unless you have the hardtop mounted, you have no protection from the weather at all. These versions typically sell at a discount for that reason, and trying to fit a top to these cars ends up just not being a viable option. You almost just have to sell the car and get one that's normally configured like this one. The storage well for the soft top is another area to look at closely. You'll want to check the function of the release levers and check the integrity of the weather stripping seal that goes around the perimeter. This seal tends to chafe in this area on each side where the soft top rubs against it when it's being lowered or raised. And if it wears away too much, then water finds its way into the storage well. Another little detail to look for is this sticker that describes instructions for lowering the top, which should be done in a very specific way to keep it looking good. In fact, if you own one of these cars or you're in the market for one, you should really consider checking out sl113.org. It's the website for the Pagoda SL group, and they have a fantastic forum and a technical manual that has every last detail about these cars. This is a great group of people, and they have meetups worldwide for their members. And I know that their technical manual has a lot of information about the operation of the soft top, along with absolutely everything else. These soft tops were really well designed and should fit perfectly when they're right. Replacement top material and the original Sonalond canvas are readily available, but they need to be installed by someone with experience. The factory had a special jig that they used on the assembly line, pretty much assuring that they were all perfectly fitted. So finding the right upholstery shop to install a replacement is key. So hopefully that the car you're looking at already has a nice top, and a few little flaws shouldn't be a problem. These tops tend to lift up a little at the corners if they're stowed in properly, and the plastic window can get a little ripply over time. Both of these are pretty normal. Now the top shown here though is in great shape with none of those problems and shows you just how crisp these tops can look when they're right. Now maybe if you really luck out, you're going to find a Pagoda with its original soft top. It can happen, I've had a few. The telltale mark are the words Wopovin Polyglass on the lower right corner of the window.